I noticed my elderly grandmother always seemed to have bruises, so I decided to install a security camera. When I saw the footage, I was devastated. The moment I stepped into Grandma Connie's house that day, I felt the tension in the air, thick as molasses. There she was, sitting in her old rocking chair, staring off into the distance, lost in her own thoughts. I approached her slowly, my heart breaking with each step. The bruises on her arms were impossible to miss, angry purple marks and red streaks stark against her pale skin. Something was terribly wrong, and I could feel it in my bones. "Grandma, what happened?" I asked, my voice a mixture of gentleness and determination. I knelt beside her chair, taking her hand in mine, waiting for an answer as a storm of anger and sadness brewed inside me. Grandma avoided my gaze, forcing a smile that never reached her eyes. She quickly replied that it was nothing, that she was fine, probably just clumsy. But I knew better. I knew her better than anyone. After all, she'd raised me since my mother's death. Grandma wasn't the type to bruise easily or be careless. The tightness in my chest grew. Something was definitely amiss. "Grandma, are you hiding something from me?" I pressed, searching her eyes for the truth. The silence that followed was heavy, almost palpable. When Grandma finally met my gaze, her eyes were pools of sorrow and fear. She insisted again that nothing was wrong, telling me not to worry, that old folks just get hurt sometimes. But I knew in my heart this wasn't normal. Even as she tried to hide it, I could see the pain in her eyes. I couldn't hide my frustration at her attempts to brush it off. "Grandma, please trust me," I pleaded. "I only want to help. These bruises don't look like accidents. Tell me what's really going on." I couldn't bear to see Grandma Connie so fragile as she averted her eyes again. My heart was breaking, knowing she was hiding something, but I didn't want to push her too hard. Just then, Shirley, Grandma's caregiver, walked in and broke the tense silence. She asked if everything was all right, and I felt a surge of suspicion rising within me. I'd always liked Shirley, but recent events had made me wary. I asked her if she'd noticed Grandma's bruises and if she knew where they came from. Shirley looked surprised by my question, like a deer caught in headlights. She admitted she'd noticed the bruises, but said Grandma had insisted it was nothing serious. Shirley claimed she'd asked multiple times, always getting the same answer. Her expression seemed genuinely concerned, but I couldn't shake my doubts. Was Shirley hiding something too? I sighed, realizing I needed to take more drastic action. I thanked Shirley, explaining that I just wanted to make sure Grandma was safe. The caregiver nodded understandingly, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something very serious was going on. I knew I couldn't ignore this anymore, something was happening, and I had to get to the bottom of it. That night, I made a decision to protect my grandmother. I dug out the security camera I'd been planning to use for an investigative journalism project. With trembling hands, I discreetly set up the camera in Grandma's room. I positioned it carefully to capture the entire room. "Don't worry, Grandma," I whispered as I placed the camera strategically. "This is for your own good. I'm going to find out what's going on." I felt a mix of fear and determination coursing through me. "I have to protect you, Grandma. You're all I have left," I said out loud to myself, trying to bolster my courage. I prayed that this would reveal the truth, whatever it might be. After setting up the camera, I returned to the living room to find Grandma still in her rocking chair, eyes closed. I gently told her it was late and she should get some sleep. Grandma slowly opened her eyes and nodded, as if waking from a distant dream. With my help, she stood up, and I supported her as we walked to her bedroom. I whispered a silent promise to Grandma as I tucked her into bed, vowing to uncover the truth and protect her at all costs. My heart was heavy as I left her room, determined not to rest until I got to the bottom of this mystery. One day, I found myself at my desk in the newsroom, surrounded by a sea of papers and memos. The glow of my computer screen highlighted the focused expression on my face. As I pored over an article about political corruption, I was reminded why I chose this profession, my unwavering belief in the truth. The passion for uncovering the facts had always been my driving force, like a compass guiding me through murky waters. Each new piece of information in an investigation was like a puzzle piece, and I felt compelled to fit them all together. My mind drifted back to my childhood, to those precious moments spent with Grandma Connie. After my mother passed away, Grandma became my everything, my rock in a stormy sea. I glanced at an old photograph of us, her warm smile radiating love and comfort. She had always been there for me, supporting me through thick and thin, like a sturdy oak tree weathering every storm. Memories of my younger self flooded back, walking hand in hand with Grandma in the park, her gentle guidance shaping me into a strong, independent person. My heart swelled with gratitude as I recalled the nights she stayed up late, helping me with my homework, nurturing my love for knowledge and justice. Just then, the shrill ring of my desk phone interrupted my reverie. It was a source with new information on an ongoing investigation. I answered with my professional voice, "Hello, this is Sarah." As I listened intently, jotting down notes and absorbing every detail, I felt that familiar fire in my belly. The truth had to be uncovered, no matter what. I've always felt a deep connection to my grandmother, like two trees with intertwined roots. Every success I've had is a tribute to her sacrifices, a testament to the love and strength she poured into raising me. As I reviewed my notes, I realized that the strength and resilience I've shown in my career all stemmed from Grandma's example. Without her, I wouldn't be where I am today. A grateful smile played on my lips as I reflected on this. Another memory surfaced, this time from a rainy night when I was 10 years old. I was trembling, terrified of the thunder, but Grandma Connie held me close. I could almost hear her soothing voice telling me not to be afraid, that she was right there with me. Tears welled up in my eyes at the recollection. Grandma had always been my rock, my safe harbor in every storm life threw at me. This thought only strengthened my resolve to protect her now. The office buzzed with activity around me, but I remained a picture of calm focus. I'd overheard colleagues say I was relentless in my pursuit of the truth, and I couldn't help but smile. Those values, instilled in me by Grandma, were now the cornerstone of my work. Glancing at the clock, I realized it was time to head home. Fatigue was setting in, but before leaving, I took one last look at my notes on the investigation into Grandma's bruises. I made a silent vow to find whoever was hurting her, my determination giving me a second wind as I closed my notebook with a resolute sigh. As I left the office, I pondered the importance of my work. Every story I uncovered was a victory for the truth, I thought as I walked. That determination and drive, I owed it all to Grandma. Everything I did was for her and for those who needed justice. With this conclusion, I headed home, my steps purposeful and my mind focused on the task ahead.
Meanwhile, Connie sat in the living room, the scent of chamomile tea wafting through the air. She looked around, feeling a mixture of pride and sadness. This house is full of memories, she thought, gently rubbing her aching arm. Every corner, every object seemed to tell a story of her life and family. Connie had always been a strong woman, but she felt her resolve weakening. She remembered the difficult times after her daughter Ashley's passing. Losing Ashley was the hardest thing I've ever experienced, she thought, fighting back tears. But Sarah was there. She gave me the strength to keep going. Raising her granddaughter alone had been challenging, but Connie never gave up. She was ready to do anything for Sarah. Connie smiled, remembering little Sarah running around the backyard. She was always so full of life, she mused. Watching Sarah grow and overcome difficulties had made everything bearable. Connie knew that her love and sacrifices had shaped Sarah into a strong woman. However, recently, Connie had been feeling her age. "I'm not as young as I used to be," she sighed. The bruises on her arms were a stark reminder of her recent vulnerability. "Sarah can't know what's happening," she thought, trying to hide her worry. She didn't want to burden her granddaughter any further. As the clock chimed, signaling the end of the day, Connie knew it was time for bed. "I need to rest," she told herself, slowly standing up. Every movement reminded her of her age and the challenges she faced. "But I won't give up. Sarah needs me," she thought. Connie needed Sarah just as much as Sarah needed her. As Connie entered her bedroom, she glanced around, unaware of the hidden camera Sarah had installed. "She must be so worried about me," Connie thought with a sad smile. She didn't know that Sarah had set up the camera to uncover the truth. "I understand her concern, but I have to protect her from the truth," Connie reflected. She realized the situation was becoming unbearable, but she didn't want to cause her granddaughter any more pain. Lying in bed, Connie contemplated her life. "I've done everything I could," she thought, feeling a mix of pride and regret. She hoped Sarah would understand her motives. Closing her eyes, Connie felt enveloped by memories of a life filled with love and sacrifice. "I love her so much," she thought as she drifted off to sleep.
I entered the room to check on Grandma Connie. My heart was heavy as I sat beside her bed and asked how she was feeling. She opened her eyes and smiled, trying to hide her worry, telling me she was fine, just a little tired. As I held her hand, I could feel how fragile she'd become, like a delicate flower that needed protection. I made a silent vow to get to the bottom of what was happening. After she drifted off to sleep, I quietly left the room, my mind racing with determination. I knew I had to solve this mystery, the weight of it pressing on my chest like a heavy stone. With each passing day, my desire to protect Grandma grew stronger, like a fire burning within me. I promised myself I'd uncover the truth, no matter the cost. With that resolve, I headed to my room to continue my investigation, feeling like a detective on a crucial case. For days, I pored over the security camera footage, searching for any clue about what was happening. It was like looking for a needle in a haystack, frustrating and time-consuming. As I watched, I couldn't help but reflect on Grandma's life and all the challenges she'd overcome. Her strength had always amazed me, like a sturdy oak tree weathering countless storms.
Connie sat in her rocking chair, the crackling of the fireplace bringing a cozy warmth to the room. Her thoughts drifted back to the past, remembering her younger self. "I became a widow far too young," she reflected, feeling a lump in her throat as she remembered her husband's tragic passing. "I had to be strong to raise Ashley on my own." Every day had been a battle, but Connie always found strength in her love for her children. They were her reason for living, her most precious treasures. She recalled Ashley and Theodore as young children, running and laughing joyfully in the backyard. "My children were always the light of my life," she thought, a nostalgic smile crossing her face. Despite all the hardships, they had managed to find happiness. Life had never been easy, but the happy moments made up for all the sacrifices. Connie had worked tirelessly, often taking double shifts to ensure her children never went without. The years flew by, and Ashley and Theodore grew up. Ashley was always such a sensitive child, she remembered fondly. She had such a big heart. Ashley had a brief relationship and ended up pregnant with Sarah. Connie remembered the mix of anxiety and joy she felt when Ashley announced her pregnancy. "I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to help her." However, life had other plans. Ashley developed health problems and passed away when Sarah was just 4 years old. The pain of losing Ashley was the deepest I've ever felt, Connie thought, feeling tears roll down her cheeks. But she had to stay strong for Sarah. Raising her granddaughter alone was a huge challenge, but Connie never hesitated. Sarah needed her, and that gave her strength. I promised myself I would do everything in my power to protect and love my granddaughter. Meanwhile, Theodore had drifted away from the family after getting married. I always thought Theodore needed his space, Connie reflected. But I never imagined he'd drift so far away. That distance left a quiet wound in Connie's heart. However, Sarah brought new joy to Connie's life. My granddaughter is my reason for living, Connie thought with a smile. She gave me the strength to keep going. She remembered Sarah's first steps and the long afternoons they spent cooking together. Her laughter and hugs reminded me that there was still so much joy in life. Connie faced numerous challenges with courage and determination. I had to be both mother and father to Sarah, she thought, feeling the weight of responsibility she'd carried for years. But I don't regret a thing. Her unconditional love for her granddaughter was the driving force that kept Connie moving forward. She recalled the financially tough times and the struggles to make ends meet. I worked so hard, but always with love, she mused. She wanted the best for Sarah, and every sacrifice was a testament to her unwavering love. Connie knew all her efforts were worthwhile. Despite the difficulties, she always found small joys in life. Watching Sarah grow up was the greatest gift, she reflected, proud of the strong, independent woman her granddaughter had become. Sarah had pursued investigative journalism, always seeking the truth and helping others. She inherited my determination, Connie thought, her eyes shining. That makes me so proud. Back in the present, Connie gazed at the photo of Ashley and Sarah on her nightstand. I did my best, she thought, satisfied with her decisions. Ashley would be proud of Sarah too. Years had passed, filled with many challenges, but Connie's love and resilience had guided her through. Life was tough, but love always kept us together, she concluded with a smile.
One day, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, staring at my open laptop. I began reviewing the footage from the security camera I'd installed in Grandma Connie's room. I hope I find something to explain these bruises, I thought, my heart heavy with worry. At first, nothing suspicious caught my eye. The footage just showed Grandma sleeping or moving around the house as usual. I sighed in frustration, feeling like I was chasing shadows. I can't give up now, I told myself, steeling my resolve to continue the investigation. As days passed, the tension inside me grew like a tightly wound spring. I started observing Grandma more closely, noticing even the smallest details. Grandma looks more tired than before, I thought, watching her move around the kitchen. Something was off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. The uncertainty gnawed at me, making me feel like I was racing against time. Am I becoming paranoid? I asked myself, but quickly pushed the doubt away. No, something was definitely happening here, I could feel it in my bones. My deep love for Grandma fueled my determination, growing stronger with each passing day. But as concrete evidence remained elusive, a heavy weight settled on my heart. What if I can't find anything? The thought haunted me, and I struggled with frustration. I knew I needed patience, but each day without answers only increased my anxiety. I can't leave Grandma in this situation, I vowed to myself, trying to stay calm. I began avoiding unnecessary outings, spending more time at home to watch over Grandma. I need to be here if something happens, I thought, canceling plans with friends. My social life started to suffer due to my obsession with uncovering the truth about Grandma. My friends will understand, I tried to convince myself, but guilt still nagged at me. One day, Grandma Connie had visitors, friends and neighbors from the area. My mind started racing, wondering if someone outside the family could be involved. Could the culprit be among these ladies? I thought, my eyes darting from one visitor to another. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, but I couldn't shake off my suspicions. Then another thought hit me, or could it be Shirley, Grandma's caregiver? Shirley had always been kind, but I knew I couldn't rule anyone out. I have to consider every possibility, I decided, even if it meant suspecting those close to us. A few days later, I found myself reviewing the footage again. It was morning, and I was exhausted, but I pushed on, determined not to miss anything. I have to find something, I muttered, fighting against my tired eyes. Suddenly, something in the video caught my attention, jolting me wide awake. It was my uncle, Theodore, entering Grandma's room. My heart started pounding like a drum in my chest. "What's he doing here?" I whispered, shocked to my core. As I watched Theodore approach Grandma, the scene that unfolded left me horrified. "I can't believe this," I thought, feeling hot tears rolling down my cheeks. Theodore was grabbing Grandma's arm, shaking her roughly. "Why, Uncle? How could you?" I murmured, feeling a mix of pain and betrayal wash over me. The video continued to show the cruel scene. Theodore was trying to force Grandma to sign some papers, but she was resisting. What on earth is he trying to make her sign? I wondered, a sense of despair growing inside me. I watched as Grandma, tears in her eyes, refused to give in to her son's pressure. I heard her say, in a voice that was weak but determined, that she wouldn't sign such a thing. Uncle Theodore was getting worked up, his face clearly showing his anger. He was waving the papers, shouting at Grandma to sign them. But Grandma kept refusing, and I could see Uncle's frustration growing by the second. He's lost control, I thought, fear gripping my heart like an icy hand. This is terrible. I felt anger rising within me at the unfairness of the situation. I realized I couldn't let this continue any longer. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the footage, no matter how much I wanted to. Theodore raised his voice even more, yelling at Grandma to hurry up and sign. Grandma was crying but still refusing, and with each refusal, Theodore's anger seemed to multiply. "This is unbearable," I whispered, feeling utterly helpless as I watched. Grandma didn't deserve to be treated like this. I knew I had to act quickly. I need to gather all the evidence, I thought, saving the recording onto a USB drive. The police needed to see this. The urgency of the situation made me move swiftly and precisely. I can't let Theodore get away with this, I decided as I prepared to leave the house. I went to Grandma's room and looked at her. She was sleeping, unaware of the danger she was in. "I'll protect you, Grandma," I thought, feeling a wave of love and sadness wash over me. "You've done so much for me. Now it's my turn to protect you." I started thinking about Uncle Theodore, wondering how many years it had been since I'd last seen him. I was trying to process the fact that he'd been to Grandma's house. I never imagined he'd show up there, I thought, completely blindsided by this revelation. The memory of the footage filled me with a rage that burned like wildfire. How could he do something like this? I asked myself, my mind reeling. At the same time, I couldn't help but think about Shirley. Why didn't Shirley notice what was happening? I wondered, doubt gnawing at me. But I knew one thing for certain, Uncle Theodore wouldn't get away with this. I could feel my blood boiling with anger, like a pot ready to overflow. I need to confront him right now, I decided, my resolve hardening like steel. With determination coursing through my veins, I got into my car and headed for Theodore's house. He's going to pay for this, I vowed, my heart pounding like a war drum as I drove through the city. I parked in front of Theodore's house, feeling my heart racing as if I'd just run a marathon. Anger was pulsing through my veins, but an unwavering determination kept me grounded. I knocked on the door forcefully, waiting for my uncle to appear, every second feeling like an eternity. When Theodore opened the door, his surprised expression quickly morphed into one of contempt. He asked what I was doing there, trying to maintain his composure. I walked in uninvited, looking Theodore straight in the eye. With a voice charged with emotion, I told him I knew what he'd done to Grandma. I declared that he couldn't escape this. Theodore raised his hands, feigning innocence and trying to explain himself. He denied everything, asking what I was talking about, but I wasn't backing down. I fired back, telling him denial was useless because I had evidence. As I said this, I could feel my anger flaring up even more, like a fire being fed fresh fuel. I told him I'd installed a camera in Grandma's room and had seen everything, his abuse and attempts to force her to sign documents. Theodore's expression morphed from surprise to anger in an instant, like a storm cloud suddenly darkening. He yelled that I had no right to do that, taking a step towards me, his body tense like a coiled spring. But I stood my ground firmly and declared my right to protect Grandma. My voice was strong and filled with determination as I vowed to make him pay and never let him hurt Grandma again. Theodore changed tactics, trying to appeal to reason like a cunning fox. He claimed I was exaggerating, that he was just trying to sort things out. With feigned calmness, he said Grandma was old and confused, and he only wanted to make sure everything was okay. His words hit me like a wave of disgust. I couldn't believe he was trying to pass this off as sorting things out. My anger reached its boiling point, like a kettle whistling on high heat. I reminded him of his lifelong selfishness, my voice trembling with emotion. I told him I wouldn't allow this anymore and promised to expose the truth and make him face the consequences. Theodore realized his excuses weren't working and became defensive, like a cornered animal. Looking him straight in the eye, I told him I had evidence to give to the police. His time was up. For a moment, Theodore was speechless, his face a mix of anger and fear, like a child caught in a lie. He tried to threaten me, saying this wasn't over, but I just shook my head. I told him he'd face justice, feeling a mix of relief and adrenaline coursing through me as I left for the police station. I clutched the USB drive containing the recording tightly as I entered the police station, feeling like I was carrying a ticking time bomb. Approaching the reception desk, I was a bundle of nerves but steeled with determination. My voice trembled slightly, but I managed to say firmly that I needed to report a case of elder abuse. The receptionist led me to Officer Timothy, who listened to my story with careful attention. I explained it was about my grandmother and showed him the USB drive, telling him I had evidence of my uncle abusing her. As Officer Timothy reviewed the footage, I watched his expression grow increasingly serious, like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. He finally said it was very serious and that they would start an official investigation immediately. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, but I knew this was just the beginning of a long journey. Thanking him, I felt a mix of gratitude and worry for Grandma Connie churning inside me. I told him all I wanted was for my grandmother to be safe. Returning home with a heavy heart, I knew I had a difficult conversation ahead of me. As I entered the house, I saw Grandma sitting in the living room, visibly upset. I gently told her we needed to talk, that I knew everything Uncle Theodore had done, and that I'd taken the proper steps. The police were now investigating. Grandma broke down in tears, her wrinkled face streaked with silent sorrow. She confessed that Theodore had tried to make her sign papers to take ownership of the house, threatening her when she refused. Hearing her confession felt like a knife twisting in my gut. Grandma continued, her voice shaking, saying how scared she'd been and how she didn't know what to do. I hugged her tightly, feeling her pain and fear as if it were my own. I assured her we were in this together, that she wasn't alone, and that I would protect her. Grandma held on to me tightly, finding a small measure of comfort in our embrace. She thanked me, her voice full of emotion, saying she didn't know what she would have done without me. Later, I decided to confront Shirley. I asked her how she could not have noticed what was happening to Grandma. I confronted Shirley, my voice filled with disbelief. Her expression was a mix of confusion and defensiveness. She insisted she hadn't known anything. I was just doing my job, she had said, her eyes darting away as if avoiding my gaze. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something. It was hard to believe that she hadn't noticed anything amiss. Frustration bubbled up within me as I studied her face, searching for any sign of deceit. The investigation that followed unraveled the truth. Timothy, the officer, revealed that Shirley had been complicit with Theodore all along. She knew everything, he stated matter-of-factly. The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. Theodore had been paying her off to keep quiet about his visits and threats. Anger surged through me, burning away any lingering trust one had in her. How could she do this? I thought, my heart heavy with betrayal. I had trusted her with my grandmother's care. In that moment of clarity, I made my decision. "Shirley, you're fired," I declared, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. "I can't trust you with my grandmother anymore." Her face fell, shame painting her features as she left without a word. A mix of relief and sorrow washed over me. I couldn't afford to dwell on the past, I needed to find someone reliable. I hired a new caregiver through a friend's recommendation, hopeful that this time it would be different. "This one will take good care of Grandma," I reassured Grandma, trying to ease her lingering doubts. "I checked her references thoroughly, so we can rest easy," I added, attempting to project confidence. Grandma managed a smile, but I could tell the shadows of past events still lingered in her mind. Yet, I sensed she trusted my judgment, and that was something I clung to. The police investigation moved quickly, and I watched as they summoned Theodore. The weight of the recorded evidence loomed over him, a silent confession to his crimes. I was determined to see this through, ready to witness justice unfold. "There's no way my uncle will escape this," I thought as I observed the officers gathering more evidence. Finally, Grandma can find peace. However, after that, strange things began to happen. I started to notice unusual movements around me ever since I accused Theodore. Wherever I went, I felt as if someone was following me. I wondered if I was just overthinking things. At first, I tried to brush away the paranoia. But the situation was clearly abnormal. I asked myself if someone was trying to threaten me. I felt a heaviness in my heart as I contemplated this. The threats began. At first, they were subtle, but soon they escalated into direct and terrifying messages. One message warned me to drop the charges against Theodore or face regret. Reading that made me tremble. I knew there was no turning back, yet my fear that something might happen to Grandma grew day by day. I had to protect my grandmother. That thought filled me with determination. One night, while I was reviewing documents on my laptop, I noticed a car parked across the street with its lights off. This couldn't be a coincidence. Panic began to set in as I thought about it. I decided to enhance the security of our home, adding security cameras and reinforcing the locks. No one could intimidate us. With a resolute expression, I sat next to Grandma. As I dealt with the situation in the living room, I tried my best not to alarm her. I told her we needed to be careful. I held Grandma's hand firmly. She looked at me with concern and asked, "What's happening, my dear child?" I felt the creeping fear within me as I faced her. I sighed, searching for the right words. I told her someone was trying to threaten us, but assured her we had already taken safety measures. Grandma nodded, trusting me, but I could see the anxiety she couldn't hide. "Why are you doing this?" As she asked with a trembling voice, my gaze was locked onto her eyes, trying my best to maintain my composure. "I think they want to force us to withdraw the charges against Uncle Theodore. But we won't back down." I said that with my determination fueling each word. We are going to fight for justice. The days that followed were filled with tension. I remained ever vigilant, my eyes scanning the surroundings for any unusual movements. I kept reminding myself, I will not let them harm us. Each thought strengthened my resolve. To protect Grandma and myself, I began planning safer routines. I avoided going out alone, always keeping in touch with trusted friends. One night, a chilling message arrived: withdraw the charges, or worse will happen. Attached to that message was a photo taken from close range of my house. This is going too far. I felt a wave of fear and anger wash over me. I realized I needed to bolster our safety measures and seek further assistance from the police. I headed back to the police station, armed with new evidence of the threats against us. I have to let the police know we're being threatened. With that thought, I set off. Upon arrival, I handed the message and photo to Officer Timothy, the officer in charge of my case. Someone is threatening us, trying to force us to withdraw the charges against my uncle. Despite the tension coursing through me, I spoke firmly as I explained. Timothy examined the evidence, his expression growing increasingly serious. We will strengthen the patrols around your home. He jotted down notes while speaking. Don't worry, Sarah. Your safety and your grandmother's safety are my priority. In that moment, I felt a brief sense of relief, yet I was acutely aware of the long road ahead. Thank you. I left the police station, feeling a new resolve blossoming in my heart. I decided to involve more trusted people, explaining the situation to my friends and close family, asking for their support. I needed them to keep watch over us. As I explained, my friends listened intently, concern etched on their faces. If anything suspicious happened, I urged them to notify me immediately. The support network forming around me empowered me in ways I hadn't expected. I took further steps to enhance our home's security. In addition to the security cameras and reinforced locks, I installed alarms and motion sensors. Every precaution was necessary, I thought as I checked the system. We couldn't afford to take any risks. My determination to protect Grandma and myself remained unshaken, even amidst the fear. One day, while I was grappling with the weight of the threats at home, my phone rang. It was Officer Timothy calling. He told me to come to the police station immediately, as there had been a development in the case. His tone was firm, and my heart raced. I replied, I'll be there right away. I hurriedly prepared to leave, emotions of anxiety and relief swirling within me. What had they discovered? My mind buzzed with possibilities. Upon arriving at the police station, Timothy greeted me with a serious expression. Sarah, we made an important discovery, he said, leading me to the conference room. We've identified the individuals behind the threats against you and Grandma. My stomach twisted in anticipation as I asked, who are they? Timothy took a deep breath before responding. It's Theodore's two sons. He continued, they're in debt and plan to acquire Connie's house along with Theodore to sell it and pay off what they owe. I felt shock and anger surging within me. I whispered to myself, I can't believe this. As I tried to sort through the information, I asked, so, this whole threat was all orchestrated by them? Timothy confirmed, yes, it was. He continued, we have evidence that Theodore and his sons were trying to intimidate you into dropping the lawsuit so they could take your home. A mix of relief and fury washed over me. I will make them pay for this, I declared firmly. We can never let them get away with it. Timothy spoke with determination, we will arrest Theodore and his sons right away. I was grateful for Timothy's resolve. He said, I'm so glad you came to the police. Now we can ensure your and your grandmother's safety. I nodded, feeling a wave of gratitude and relief wash over me. Thank you, Timothy, I said with heartfelt emotion. Finally, everything is coming to an end. As Timothy worked on the procedures, my mind drifted back over everything that had happened. I realized that all the pain and suffering stemmed from their greed. The thought tightened my throat with a lump. Yet, hope filled me, knowing justice was within reach. We will get through this, Grandma, I thought with a determined smile. A few minutes later, Timothy returned to the meeting room. Everything is set. We are ready to take action. You can go home now, he assured me. Just leave it to us. I felt as if a heavy weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I said, I'm going to talk to Grandma. She will surely feel relieved. With that, I stood up. Timothy wished me luck, saying, I hope everything goes well with Grandma. And please contact us if anything else happens. As I headed home for the first time in weeks, a lightness filled my heart. I found Grandma in the living room, looking worried. Grandma, I have good news, I said as I sat next to her. The police have tracked down the person behind the threats. It was Uncle Theodore's sons. Grandma looked utterly stunned, her voice faltering. Theodore's sons? She asked with disbelief etched on her face. Why would they do something like that? I explained, they were in debt and were trying to sell your house with Theodore. But the police are already taking action, and they will all be arrested. Relief flooded Grandma's face, and tears of joy streamed down her cheeks. Thank God. She squeezed my hand tightly and said, finally, this will be over. The police operation unfolded swiftly and effectively, arresting Theodore and his sons, taking them to the precinct. As I watched the news about it on TV, a deep sense of satisfaction washed over me. Finally, they will face the consequences of their actions, I thought with a smile of relief. Justice has been served. Meanwhile, in his cold cell, Theodore pondered his choices. How did I end up in a place like this? He asked himself, shivering in the stark solitude. He knew his desires had led to his own destruction, but it was too late for regret. I visited Theodore just once, gazing at the man who had caused me so much pain. You destroyed our family. As I spoke with a resolute voice, Theodore couldn't meet my gaze and simply murmured, I'm sorry. But I knew those words wouldn't erase his actions.
Theodore's sons were also suffering in their respective cells. They thought to themselves, Dad ruined us. They understood that their actions were unforgivable, but they also felt deep anguish for blindly following Theodore's plan. The eldest son felt the weight of his choices. Life in prison was harsh, and they faced the consequences of their actions daily.
While I felt relief that justice had been served, I thought, they were family, too. As I gazed at an old photograph, I understood that I had to avoid being consumed by sadness. With Grandma needing me now, I had to be stronger than ever. I resolved, let's move forward for us. Days passed, and Grandma and I gradually returned to our former peace. The threats had stopped, and safety returned to our home. We did it, Grandma, I said as I hugged Grandma tightly. No one can harm us anymore. Grandma smiled through her tears of joy. Thank you, my dear child, for never abandoning me. I understood that a challenging path lay ahead, but with Grandma by my side, I felt we could overcome anything. We will move forward, I thought, feeling hope revive within me. Together always. The love and resilience that bound the two of us proved stronger than any hardship. It was all we needed, and I was convinced that the worst was behind us. Months passed, and life began to return to its normal rhythm. Then, a new change entered the lives of my grandmother and me. I met a young, dedicated doctor named Jeremy, and I felt a new breath of life. I thought to myself, he's different from anyone else. Grandma was in the kitchen, making tea, so I walked in with Jeremy by my side. "Grandma, this is Jeremy." I introduced him with a nervous smile. Grandma looked at him with curiosity, and after a brief silence, she offered a warm smile. "Welcome, Jeremy." She extended her hand to him. Jeremy respectfully took Grandma's hand. "Nice to meet you, Grandma. I've heard so much about you." He seemed to warm up quickly. Grandma laughed and turned her gentle gaze toward Jeremy. "I hope it's all good things," she replied with a smile directed at me. "Jeremy, please sit down and join us for tea." A calm atmosphere settled around us when Grandma said that. As we talked, I watched the exchange between Jeremy and Grandma, feeling a deep sense of comfort and joy. This is going well, I thought, feeling my heart warm. When Jeremy shared an amusing story from work, Grandma laughed joyfully. "Jeremy, you have a great sense of humor," she said, clearly growing fonder of him. I felt a wave of relief wash over me as I thought, this is a good start, watching my grandmother's happy face. Months passed, and Jeremy and I grew closer. I felt he was everything I had been needing, and with every passing moment, my attraction to him deepened. Jeremy was always kind and considerate toward both me and Grandma. Grandma once remarked, "You really found a wonderful man, Sarah," her sharp observation striking a chord within me. "I'm truly happy for you, my dear." I felt a wave of celebration wash over me at my grandmother's support, and so Jeremy and I decided to take our relationship to the next level. "Will you marry me?" he asked, holding my hand and shining with hope. My heart raced at the question. "Yes, Jeremy, let's get married," I replied, overwhelmed with joy. The preparations for the wedding unfolded with careful attention, and Grandma was involved in every detail. "I want you to be part of this, Grandma," I said while choosing flowers. "Of course, my dear," Grandma replied with pride shining in her eyes. Finally, the day of the wedding arrived. The ceremony was simple but filled with love. Grandma sat in the front row, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'm so proud of you, Sarah," she thought, watching me walk toward the altar. Jeremy looked at me with love and respect, ready to embark on our new life together. He felt the depth of that moment as I approached him. Grandma delivered a short speech that moved everyone. "Jeremy, welcome to our family. I'm truly happy for you, Sarah," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "You will always have my love and support." I approached my grandmother and wrapped my arms around her tightly. "Thank you, Grandma," I whispered, grateful for Grandma being a part of my life. Marriage brought a new rhythm to my life. I've never felt this fulfilled, I thought, as I organized our new home with Jeremy. We always felt Grandma's presence close by, visiting regularly to ensure she never felt lonely. "Grandma, you're a part of our life," I said as I helped her tend to the garden. Grandma felt a sense of fulfillment watching my happiness, especially as Jeremy is a devoted and loving husband. He then quietly told me, "I'm so glad we found each other," during our peaceful moments together. He always considered Grandma, planning for our future. "Let's make sure Grandma has everything she needs," we agreed. The fact that Jeremy and I were there for her brought Grandma joy and comfort. 2 years passed since Jeremy and I got married, and life had become a blessing for us. I found out I was pregnant, and the news filled our home with joy. "Jeremy, we're going to have a baby," I told him with tears in my eyes, and he held me tightly, feeling like the happiest man in the world. "I'm so happy, Sarah," he replied, fighting back tears of joy. "Our child will be surrounded by so much love." During my pregnancy, Grandma was always there for me. "Grandma, what do you think of this name?" I asked while pondering baby names. Grandma smiled and said, "Dylan is a lovely name, my dear," gently stroking my belly. "He will surely bring us so much light," I agreed, feeling the strength of our family's love. The day Dylan was to be born arrived, and our family gathered at the hospital, eagerly waiting. It's going to be okay. I felt a surge of confidence with Jeremy by my side. When Dylan finally arrived, the sound of his cries filled the room, and tears welled up in everyone's eyes. "He's perfect." Jeremy gazed at our son, his voice filled with emotion. "Our little miracle." When Grandma held Dylan for the first time, a happiness unlike any she had ever felt washed over her. "My great-grandson," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You are the joy of our family." I smiled at the sight, my heart brimming with fulfillment. "Grandma, I'm so happy you're here," I told her, my voice full of emotion. Grandma just nodded, unable to contain her joy. The first few months after Dylan was born were filled with discoveries and precious moments. "Are you ready to explore this world with us, Dylan?" Jeremy said, marveling at our son's growth. I poured all the love I had learned from Grandma into raising Dylan. "I want to be the best mother for him," I thought as I watched Dylan sleeping peacefully. Just like what Grandma did for me. Grandma cradled Dylan in her arms, singing lullabies and sharing stories. "You're going to grow up surrounded by love, my little one," she promised, drawing strength from his very existence. "I will watch every step of your growth." Dylan looked up at Grandma with shining eyes, as if he understood her words, bringing her joy and new hope. Jeremy and I cherished every new moment with Dylan. "He's our greatest joy," I said, watching Jeremy hold Dylan in his arms. Our home was always filled with laughter and love, reflecting the happiness Dylan brought into our lives. "We're building something wonderful here," I saw Jeremy reflecting on how grateful he was for our family. "I'm so thankful I can be this involved," Grandma said as she treasured every moment with Dylan. I felt a wave of gratitude for her, thinking, "Grandma, you're our rock." Dylan's first birthday celebration was filled with joy and laughter. "He's really growing up fast," Jeremy said as he helped Grandma decorate the cake. Watching our family gather and share happy moments, I thought to myself, so many more celebrations await us. I gazed lovingly at Dylan. Grandma held him close, feeling a happiness like never before. "You've brought a new light into our lives, my great-grandson," she whispered, while Dylan played with her fingers. "Thank you for this joy." I watched the scene unfold with tears in my eyes, feeling a deep sense of blessing. Our family is complete now, I thought, my heart filled with gratitude and love.
On the other hand, Theodore and his sons understood that they could never erase the past. Theodore showed an expression of resignation. They sought ways to help the other prisoners. They talked among themselves, continuing their efforts. But it was a necessary step toward finding even a little peace. After serving their time, they decided that their only path forward was to seek forgiveness from Connie and Sarah. Theodore was overwhelmed by guilt as he said to his sons. His sons agreed, understanding that this was the only way to find peace within their hearts.
That day, I was at home with Grandma. The doorbell rang, and when I opened the door, there stood Theodore and his sons. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice tinged with surprise and tension. Theodore looked at me with regret in his eyes and replied, "I came to apologize, Sarah." A swirl of complicated emotions washed over me, but I decided to listen to what they had to say. "Come in," I said hesitantly. Grandma was sitting in the living room, her presence grounding me. As Theodore began to speak, his voice trembled. "Mom, we're here to apologize for the crimes we committed, for all the pain we caused you." Grandma gazed at them, and I could feel the weight of years of suffering and betrayal bearing down on her heart. Theodore's sons noticed the pain reflected in Grandma's eyes, and their regret deepened. "I was just trying to follow Dad's lead, but now I truly understand how wrong we were," the eldest son said, tears welling in his eyes. I felt an inner conflict rise within me as I turned to Grandma. "What do you want to do, Grandma?" I wanted to respect her feelings. Grandma took a deep breath, and a tense silence filled the room. "I forgive you," she said, her voice shaking. "I hold no grudges in my heart, but I can't forget what you did." I looked at her with deep respect, admiring her strength. "I forgive you too," I said firmly. "But we can't go back to how things were. We have to walk our separate paths now." Theodore and his sons nodded, understanding the decision Grandma and I had made. "Thank you for forgiving us," Theodore said, his voice full of gratitude. "We won't cause you any more pain. We will live our lives with respect for you." I felt a sense of relief wash over me, as if a chapter had finally closed. "I wish you luck, but our relationship ends here." As I said this, I spoke with sincerity, sending my heartfelt words into the air.
Theodore glanced back just once, a mix of sadness and relief etched across his face. "I've been forgiven," he thought with a deep sigh. "Now, I have to build a new life away from them." His sons nodded in agreement, ready to embrace their fresh start. "Let's cherish this forgiveness," the younger son vowed with determination.
After Theodore and his sons left, I found myself sitting in silence with Grandma Connie. "Was this the right thing, Grandma?" I asked, my heart searching for reassurance. She smiled softly, her eyes glistening with tears, and replied, "Yes, my dear. Forgiveness holds power." At that moment, Jeremy walked in, cradling Dylan in his arms. "Are you okay?" he asked, sensing the tension that lingered in the room. I offered him a calm smile, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. "Yes, Jeremy. Everything has fallen into place." I looked at Dylan, who beamed back at me, and a glimmer of hope for the future flickered within me. Our family is safe and united. That's what matters most. The days that followed became a time of reflection and renewal. Grandma and I felt lighter in our hearts as we extended forgiveness, but also set healthy boundaries. Forgiveness is a release, I thought while playing in the garden with Dylan. But it's also important to protect what we've built.
Theodore and his sons carried the heavy weight of their mistakes, yet they found themselves with a chance for atonement. "We've been given another chance," Theodore said to his sons, feeling a deep gratitude for the forgiveness they had received. "Let's make the most of this opportunity." They knew the road ahead would be tough, but they were determined to cherish the forgiveness granted to them by Connie and Sarah.
As I watched Dylan play, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. We had truly overcome so much together. I thought back on all the challenges we had faced, while the sun warmed my face, bringing a comfort I hadn't felt in a long time. But now, sitting here together, we are stronger than ever. I squeezed my grandmother's hand as I sat beside her, wanting to share my resolve. I promised her, "I will keep moving forward, Grandma. We will always be together." A smile spread across her face, one that told me she understood. With love and resilience, we will continue to build our lives. We have reconciled with our past, and we are ready for a bright future.
If you are interested in this story, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support is essential for us to continue producing interesting content regularly. Don't miss our next exciting story. It will be coming to your screen soon. We sincerely appreciate your support. Until we meet again.